better than they used to be. Yeah, they're
limited to within TIF districts.
Are you at it now?
Smart, I don't bring them
No,
up.
so always,
I just,
they'll always bring it up.
well, you might as well bring it up. It's gonna go like that.
No,
this week,
and I'd rather,
you get it
yeah,
next
I'd
I mean,
rather,
the main reason we do this,
I hear
this is we felt we need.
Pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Is there a motion for the approval of the minutes of the July 7th, 2014 council meeting?
Move approval.
Second.
The motion is second. Are there any corrections, deletions, or additions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes have been approved. We do have two individuals who have registered to speak this evening. First, we have Mr. Peter McKeever, 6302 Southern Circle, would like to speak in favor of the energy resolution, followed by Marina Cat, who registered in favor of the resolution. So you get to speak for both parties.
I've never done that well or successfully. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. The pace at which the Earth's atmosphere is heating up and the consequences for the security and quality of life on this planet is the single most important issue of our time. It's an issue we ignore at our peril and at the peril of our children and our grandchildren and their children in turn. In no more than 2 generations, and perhaps only one, our children will be asking, how could they do that? How could they have let that happen? We will have no good answers to that question. We are leaving future societies a tragic legacy of severe weather, food shortages, and economic and political upheaval. One of the defining characteristics of this issue is that we all feel so powerless. What can I do that really makes a difference, we ask? Can I realistically give up my car, stop using airplanes, postpone turning the furnace on in the fall, eat only locally produced foods with negligible carbon footprints? How far can I sacrifice, and if I do, will it really make a difference? If not, why bother? It's clear that effective action must happen in the political arena. As individuals, we can urge our elected officials to adopt a carbon tax. We can demand that energy conservation gets the public support it needs. We can fight for effective mass transportation systems that are convenient and supported so as to be inexpensive. And we can urge our local city councils to provide policy leadership for city government. The resolution that's before you does that, and I urge you to support it. We can do one more thing. We can send a message that doing business as usual is not acceptable. In my view, the resolution that you have does not go far enough. I serve on the Sustainability Committee and have since its formation many years ago. In fact, I believe it was my resolution as a member of this body that led to the formation of that committee on an ad hoc basis. My hope was that the committee would provide leadership to the city, to our residents, and to others on adapting our ways of doing things to assure that future generations would have access to the same natural resources that we enjoy. I envision Monona as a replicable model of a more sustainable city. This began as a resolution urging the city to divest from any investments in fossil fuel companies and urging others to do the same. Fossil fuel companies are sitting on many times the carbon reserves needed to drive the temperatures of the Earth to levels that are simply incompatible with life as we know it. They are profiting at the expense of our children's futures. I urge you to adopt the resolution, but to amend it to include language urging others to make different choices. I propose you add the following language, and I have a copy of it here I'll give to each of you. Recognizing, this is a language that I would urge you to put into the resolution, recognizing that the future health and well-being of Monona residents will be adversely impacted by the actions and inactions of others relating to the use of fossil fuels, Monona urges individuals, businesses, institutions, and other communities to reconsider their investments in practices and equipment that are dependent on the use of fossil fuels and to invest in, explore, and adopt alternative energy sources. This too does not speak directly to divestment as it was originally proposed, although it might be read that way. An investment in fossil fuels is the purchase of a diesel snowplow, the installation of electric equipment reliant on coal-produced electricity, or a gas water heater, as well as the purchase of stock in Exxon or BP, which is the more typical meaning of investment in the context of a divestment conversation. We must build public and political support for alternatives. A resolution from our City Council that includes urging and hopefully inspiring others to look at their investments more closely will not solve the problem, but adding our voice to the growing chorus will help. We owe that to our children, it seems to me. This is the right time for this kind of leadership. Monona has a terrific track record on sustainability. This will build on that record. I'll ask Brian to pass down this language just so that each of you have a copy of it. And I thank you for taking the time to listen, for considering this, and for taking the time to sit on that side of the table and serve. I appreciate it. I know what the sacrifice that you all make in terms of other parts of your life. So, thank you.
Thanks, Peter.
If you have any questions, I'd be glad to try and answer those as well.
Did he stay under his 3 minutes?
30, but
Oh, 30, you gave him
out
30
of
minutes.
respect,
Oh, I had
being
30
a
minutes.
former-
Well, I
Oh.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, and thank you for serving on committees.
You need one?
on behalf
I
of-
was just going to, we'll share.
Okay.
All right, is there anyone else that would care to address the council tonight? Seeing none, I declare the public hearing section closed. There is no consent agenda this evening under council action items. Item number 1 in unfinished business is consideration of ordinance number 7-14-662, which is amending the official traffic map of the city of Monona for establishment of no parking between arrows on Mangrove Lane, brought forth by the Public Works Committee.
Move approval.
There's a motion for approval. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Is there anyone from staff?
Yeah, Mr. Stefani isn't here tonight. He has a wedding anniversary to celebrate, so he asked me to fill in and answer any questions you may have. Mr. Stefani has been in contact with the surrounding businesses in regards to this no parking, and all are in full concurrence with what's being proposed.
Questions? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B is consideration of ordinance 7-14-661, which is amending Title V, Chapter 1 of the Monona Code of Ordinances regarding the Police and Fire Commission. Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Chief?
This was discussed at the last council meeting, and there was a member from the Police and Fire Commission that kind of laid out the history as to why we're doing this. It was basically updating the ordinance and putting in a better order. There were 3 attorneys on the commission, plus our city attorney reviewed the suggested changes. And some of them were to also comply with the changes in the law.
And since our last meeting, nothing has changed in this. So this is as was reviewed at the last meeting. Questions? Comments? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much, Chief. Item 1C is consideration of Resolution 14-07-1978, supporting practices that reduce Monona's dependence on fossil fuels, brought forth by the Sustainability Committee.
Move
So
approval.
There's a motion for approval. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second by Chad Alder-Spate. I also would note, in addition to the appearances section that was in there, we have received from a number of Dane County supervisors in support of the resolution, and then is Senator Miller's, I have that here. I've already filed it. Oh, here, sorry. I'll try to quickly read this. dated July 1st, dear Mayor Miller and the Monona City Council, I would like to offer my support of the proposed fossil fuel divestment resolution in the city of Monona. As you know, climate change is a major concern, which requires swift action at many levels, from individuals to government. Just as with the tobacco and South African apartheid divestment movements of the past, this movement will serve to bring public attention to the crisis we are facing and generate the political pressure for government to enact serious legislation to address the role of fossil fuels in climate change. Divestment from fossil fuels will help create momentum for carbon restrictive legislation and generate support for investment in a broad range of alternatives. Climate change is already affecting cities and citizens directly through rising costs of food, health, energy, and insurance due to extreme weather. The city of Monona recognizes this future reality and should be commended for the steps they have already taken to establish a sustainability plan for the city. Fossil fuel divestment is another strategy that cities can use to play a significant role in transitioning our communities to protect the planet for future generations. Now, more than ever, our future depends on what we do today to help preserve places like Monona and our entire global community for our children, grandchildren, and beyond. By passing the fossil fuel divestment resolution, the city of Monona will stand out to future generations as one of the leaders in preserving our beautiful planet. Sincerely, Mark Miller, State Senator, 16th Senate District. Discussion. Alder Wood.
I was wondering what discussion well, I guess I was wondering what the other members of the body feel with regard to not so much divestment, because as far as I'm aware, the city doesn't have any investment per se in fossil fuel companies. Obviously, we have fossil fuel burning vehicles, which is, to me, a different category. But it did occur to me that, and I had mentioned that at the last meeting, that we didn't have any such investments. However, it did occur to me that in the future in TIF districts, there would be the opportunity potentially to invest in, if there were a fossil fuel related company that wanted to locate in a TIF district in the future, and whether this body would have any interest in establishing a policy that we not invest in fossil fuel companies within TIF districts. So I'm open for.
Alder Thomas.
Just a couple of comments. I think the committee spent a lot of time deliberating all those possibilities and worked very diligently to come up with something that made sense. And while it's possible that that may happen, I just think that you don't know, and it might be, if somebody wanted to invest $50 million in the city and they happen to have a portion of does MG&E count? Who counts? Does all of the companies that, in that case, when we did the solar panels, did we do anything with MG&E that would not have been appropriate? I think we have to be cautious about when we talk about fossil fuels, because there are other energy companies that we work with, some of whom do wind power, solar power. I think they talked about all of this, and I think part of it was educating the council, and if at the time this comes up, you could deal with it on the council. If they're smart and if they're caring, we'll deal with it on a case-by-case basis. So I think that it's when you don't know what you're doing, which I think we wouldn't know because we wouldn't know what would be. I think that's always a dangerous, potentially problematic thing, because we just don't know who it would be.
Alder Holmquist.
I can speak to some of the discussion, and Alder O'Connor chime in if I misrepresent any of this. Some of the original kind of pieces around divestment and some of the things that the committee wrestled with were regarding if communities don't have investments, there are ways to approach that from a divestment resolution kind of standpoint, and much more of making a case for it and urging other people to change their practices. At the committee level, we had some discussions about the value of that and the potential value of reinstating some of the, or restating some of the practices that we have done and voice a more proactive step of what are some continued efforts that we can do to look at our actions as a municipality and to look at that committee and some of its actions that link with the sustainability plan and how that can carry out this mission. The piece regarding future investments, although many of us talked about that as the dollar kind of investment in a company, I think there was also discussions that represent kind of what you're talking about. Well, what if a company comes in and, you know, where's the line in the sand? Is this business a good business? Is this not a good business? And personally, I didn't feel like we could capture how to operationalize that in a document now for future things that are unknown. Where the way it's written in this document is much more of an active, ongoing kind of learning and assessment for us to learn more about this and make better choices as we move forward, and not make a decision now for something that we don't know in the future. I'm not sure if that represents.
Yeah, I agree with Alderman Holmquist. I think that was the thought. We also discussed, for instance, the city puts money in the state retirement fund for employees, and they invest in fossil fuels. You know, I mean, it was difficult to know where to draw the line, and we can't really say we're not going to do that, I don't think. So that, I agree with Alderman Holmquist. That was our thought, was to have something more positive steps we could do, among them being teaching people about divestment practices and how they can reinvest in renewable energy and things like that.
Further questions? Alder Spate.
Well, I just want to express my support for this, and I also support the suggested amendment that Alder McKeever proposed. But I do want to speak directly to what I think is the most important thing the city can do. And this resolution doesn't force us to do it, but every year when we adopt a budget and when we make capital investments in equipment, and former Alder McKeever spoke to this, we are committing the city to either a carbon positive or carbon neutral or carbon negative future. So every vehicle we buy, every mechanical piece of equipment, and then every solar panel or wind turbine that we may invest in to generate and contribute to our own power, those are conscious actions that we take. And I think the best thing we will ever do is to continue to purchase more energy equipment. That was a real sweetheart deal that we got on behalf of the taxpayers with the current equipment we have. And I think we can go much further than that and put our money where our mouth is and maybe look to cut the cord to our reliance on, our dependence on, our ongoing consumption of dirty energy. We could do it. And I think we have these solar panels that we will be able to look at what they cost, how much power they're producing, what they're saving, what's the payback to the taxpayer. We'll be able to take that information and I hope make some decisions in future budgets as to whether or not that's something that we think is worth doing. So, like I say, I support this, and I think that's ultimately the most powerful thing we will ever do. For example, when we have these solar panels, and then if it's appropriate, when it's appropriate for the city to buy electric vehicles that we can then power using those panels, we're really, we're producing our own energy and powering our own vehicles. Whether or not we remain connected to MG&E, I have to say, as both a public official and a business owner and a citizen of the community, I'm disturbed by what MG&E is doing right now, and with the path they've decided to go down, in essentially trying to sock it to each and every consumer and essentially punish those of us that are trying to do the right thing, and frankly help them to meet peak demand for power. Solar panels help the utility. They prevent blackouts from happening, and MG&E has typically talked the talk and seemed to do the right thing. But the more you scratch beneath the surface, you realize maybe they're not quite doing that. And I'm concerned, and I think we need to be a part of, we represent constituents who want our power company to do the right thing. And right now they're the only game in town. They've essentially got a monopoly unless you invest in your own equipment. And I think they need to wake up and pay attention to what the ratepayers are saying. So I support this, and I would make a motion to support or to adopt this amendment to this resolution.
I would second that.
There's a motion and a second to adopt the amendment that was brought forth by Mr. McKeever this evening. Discussion. Alder Holmquist and Alder Bussey.
Alder Speak, can you indicate, do you have a location within the document that you're suggesting? Is this part of a whereas statement or as part of the action step under the resolution?
I have been debating that as we've been sitting here.
Couldn't we put it as the fifth step?
I think so. I think it could be the fifth.
Mr. McKeever,
Resolved.
since you brought forth this, have you considered it in the context of the overall document?
I thought of it initially as an action step.
So I would ask that it be put in as item number 5.
Did that answer your question?
I'm not sure that it
Might have to reword
quite
it.
stands, that the verbiage is consistent.
Alder Bussey.
I appreciate Alder McKeever's bringing this. In my opinion, I think it's that what he's requesting is already covered. If you look at in the action steps, number 1, as far as recommending additional steps for the city government to implement and reduce dependency on fossil fuels, and then 2, where it pledges to educate residents and business owners of the importance of reducing fossil fuels. And to me, it's kind of redundant. I think it's covered here. And what I like about this document is that the way it's evolved is that it's not what not to do, it's what to do. It's not don't do this, it's do this. And I think so I would vote against Alder Spade's recommendation because I think it's covered.
Further discussion on the amendment? Alder Thomas?
I was impressed when I went to sustainability because they really went, you had to be there, but they really went thoroughly through all of these things and talked in great depth about what they wanted covered and particularly the action steps. And this changes what they did, albeit slightly, it does change it. And I think they worked diligently, and I understand Mr. McKeever couldn't make it that night, so he wasn't there. But to come this night, the last night when we do it, the rest of the committee can't think about it, talk about it, comment on it, and have us change it, is something that I'm not comfortable with.
Alder O'Connor?
I don't think the committee would have a problem with it, personally. To me, I understand what Alder Bussey is saying, although I think it's a little more direct about, rather than saying we're not going to invest in the future, it is just urging people to think about it, about their investments, and I think it's a little more specific than we go into in the action steps here. So I wouldn't have a problem maybe dropping the first 2.5 lines and just saying that the city urges individuals, businesses, and institutions to reconsider, to go from that point forward. So
Is that a friendly amendment?
I guess it is.
And I would accept.
I'm just thinking, if we're trying to make the wording fit with the rest of it.
Well, I would accept that, and I would agree. I mean, I also can understand Alder Bussey's point, and
So we're dropping the first 3 lines on what I'm looking at and picking it up with the words that the city of Monona urges individuals.
yes.
All right, the maker of the motion has accepted the friendly in the second. First Alder Wood had his hand up, then Alder Bussey, then Alder Holmquist. Alder
Yeah.
Wood.
Thank you. But I recognize, I think both Alder Bussey and Alder Thomas have made good points, although I think we've also heard, I think, some other members of the committee who wanted a stronger statement, what they viewed as a stronger statement. I will support this amendment. I will also say that if the amendment fails, I will still vote for the resolution that we have in front of us right now.
Alder Bussey.
If we're looking at it in the mirror, we are, Monona urges individuals, businesses, institutions, and other communities, but not our own. Is there somebody missing there? You know, it's the city of Monona.
But I think we cover that in number 3.
Well, that goes back to my first point. I think we've got it covered already.
Alder Holmquist.
I think part of some of the earlier versions that the committee discussed regarding this, the piece that probably jumps up the most from this proposed amendment is the piece around institutions and other communities to reconsider their investments. And, looking to remember some of the earlier versions and how that statement interplayed in some of these action steps. And the one that comes to mind is remembering statement 2, where it's a priority to educate the residents and business owners of Monona, as well as institutions and other communities, and then it follows on. I think that type of amendment was consistent with the discussions of the committee as a whole, where I think there was an earlier, stronger statement that had to do with a lot more of, although we don't invest, we won't invest in the future, and then we urge and it specifically named institutions of what to do. I think there was some concern among some members of the strength of that, and I think the addition of institution and other communities to item 2 captures a piece of the discussion that the committee had without going to the length that it was concerning for some members. And I'd like to hear from you folks that made the amendment.
Are are you saying take the wording of the amendment and put it in number 2?
Just the items, institution and other communities, in item 2 after business owners of Monona, comma, institutions and other communities.
But I don't think we're going to be educating other communities about it. I understand what you're trying to say, but I don't know if that...
Alder Thomas.
I just have a question that I'd like you all to help me wrap my arms around, and that is when I think about all responsible people, and I think about institutions, it could be Harvard, it could be the University of Science, it could be all bailing out, and the likes of the Koch brothers bailing in. When you talk, Chad, about responsible, getting MG&E to do responsible things, it takes responsible shareholders and management to get them to do responsible things. If all of the responsible institutions fail, who is going to see that they do the right stuff? And that's my, and I don't mean to point it at you, but I'm sort of pointing it down at that end of the table, because that's something that I'm having trouble if all the responsible people aren't around, who's going to make them behave better?
Well, if I may respond, I mean, we write a check to MG&E every month for thousands of dollars, and there's no other game in town for power. And so we essentially have a monopoly situation, which is why there's the PSC and why they're regulated. But we're fulfilling our role here to help push them to do the right thing. And I think part of what they're not doing right now is promoting a more sustainable investment and diversifying of the power grid. They're moving in the wrong direction. And the goal of this body, as I see it, is to make investments, and we pay for power with MG&E, and I want this resolution to be part of the chorus that is demanding that MG&E do the right thing and not go down the road they're going down right now.
Well, and I'm not talking MG&E, I'm talking all power, all fossil fuel.
Right.
Alder Wood and Alder O'Connor.
But just as an aside, to, I think maybe clarify or expand on what Alder Spate's talking about with him, just specifically with MG&E, and I know this is broader, but I believe they've increased the basic service charge to residential customers, so that basically to make up for income they're losing by more people using solar. So anyway, set that aside. I think that's right, isn't it?
That's correct.
I guess in response to your question, I would say it's basically relying on market forces, that if fewer people are buying something, there's less demand, the price goes down, the value of it decreases.
I'm not talking about using less fossil fuel. I'm talking about investing in the stock, which is what it's.
Right, but if their products are less valuable, then their stock presumably will follow at some point.
No, the price will go up.
All right, Alder O'Connor.
I see this as being a little different than saying that they shouldn't invest in stock. It's also talking about investments in practices and equipment, and to me that's things like us reconsidering what type of vehicles we buy in the capital budget. And it's kind of a broader than just talking about the stock market.
Yeah.
Alder Holmquist.
When I relook at the piece from on the proposed amendment from Monona urges to the end and look to some of the other communities that next to us that we deal with. The county, they're investing in harvesting the dump to power their next set of trucks and different things. I think that is the intention of this statement, which is different than the original some of the original language that we wrestled with that was much more directed purely at stock or just money investment rather than capital equipment and how you do business. I think this is consistent with the discussions at the committee level, and I think it does not alter the intention of that body. And I would support from that line down as a number 5.
All right, unless there's further discussion on this, what we have before us is the amendment, and with the friendly revised amendment, which would be action item number 5 would read that the city of Monona urges individuals' investments, that their businesses, all of that. So that is what's before us right now. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Opposed, the amendment, and a maybe.
I'm sorry.
2
Oh,
nays.
2 nays.
Thank
I'm
you.
sorry, I thought you said maybe.
We don't get to say maybe, do we? I didn't know that was an option.
Get him staying, obviously.
All right, so the ayes have it, so the amendment passes. Now back to the original resolution with the supporting amendment. Is there further discussion on the original amendment? Or I mean, resolution? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And just as a point of information, some of the discussion earlier regarding the MG&E rate increase, as you know, we've been going to argue against that before the PSC. There have been ongoing negotiations throughout the process, and Monona has been grandfathered. So we have been set aside, but City Attorney Cole inquired if he should stop pursuing, and I said keep going on behalf of those who follow us. So although we are grandfathered out in that rate case, we are still taking action in that. And then just one other side that I think's remain in terms of the relevancy of all of this is I just had a meeting, and I was thinking of inviting an appropriate time somewhere, but in terms of what can be accomplished. But if you have a chance, look at Gunderson Luther in La Crosse. And their CEO was a really strong business person, and I'm hoping to get to meet, but I've met with some of the staff several times now. But the biggest energy users of all industries in the world are hospitals, for obvious reasons, because of temperature control, sterilization, all the things. They're huge users of energy. And the CEO 5 years ago declared that because of their great usage, they owe it to the world to try to do everything they can to operate sustainability. So he set the goal, and again, he's business first, sustainability as an ancillary item, but to go into an energy positive relationship in 5 years. They have accomplished that in just under 5 years at all of their clinics, all of their hospitals, that they are energy positive, and they've done that by building clinics on landfills, that next to landfills and joining them, that they fuel and empower the company. And again, not all have been successful because they have to hold the litmus test. They have to make economic sense, or they kill the projects, and they've killed some projects. But most recently, the one that put them over the hump is they've invested millions of dollars in Middleton for the latest biodigester, the manure digester, and that's over 100 miles from their nearest facility. So I guess the point just being, using both sides of the equation, the business side and the sustainability side, I think there can be some equilibrium. And I'm very comfortable with what I heard tonight in this discussion, that the city can always do better. And I hope we will continue to always try to do better, but we still need to make an economic case through all those discussions. So just a point of information. I was going to try to invite them to speak, because it's pretty amazing what can be done when you set your mind to it. All right. Moving on to new business, item 2A. Consideration of ordinance 8-14-663 is dissolving the Committee on Family Attraction, Retention, and City Promotion.
Second.
Motion and a second to suspend the rules, take this item out of order. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Alder Holmquist, I know this has my name on it, but you were the one who did the heavy lifting on this.
So, this committee over the last probably year and a half, well, probably.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Move approval.
Yeah, is there a motion for approval? Is there a second?
Second.
Motion second. Alder Holmquist.
Probably 2 years ago, we started the discussion about the original intentions of this committee and its objectives. We reviewed many of the items that this committee has achieved up to this point and looked were there future objectives that weren't met or the committee needed to continue to address. At that time, the committee realized that everything had been resolved and there were components that were identified in the original structure that have been implemented in some of the other committees throughout the city, and that it would be best to dissolve.
Questions?
My question really just relates to process of whether the committee did vote in itself to dissolve itself. Okay, so there's not, I guess I was just wondering if we needed to have a second reading on this, or not.
We had a discussion to dissolve it, and it was unanimous.
Okay.
And that would happen a period of time back due to some staff changes. We were trying to indicate all the different projects that committee's been a part of to officially represent that within this resolution.
Okay.
So it took some time from that vote until now.
Yeah.
Further questions? I think it is important just to note some of those, so it's not glossed over that the committee served a function that was very important. So you'd indulge me that they initiated the Fall Family Festival. They consulted on the last two websites leading to our great website rebuild, offered recommendations for placement and content of our wayfinding signage, which is out for bid right now. Helped educate local realtors on Monona property offering, worked with the chamber to enhance their business guide, made presentations to attract businesses, initiated a marketing campaign, designed the light pole banners that decorate all the city main corridors, reviewed the draft strategic housing plan, and helped bring more attention and support to the community's residential areas and neighborhoods. So it was not that they were not productive during the time. I think they served a very valuable role, but perhaps, and I know some of the individuals have already stepped forth to serve on other committees. So it's not like we'll lose the talent of the individuals. So, further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, thank you, Alder Holmquist, for doing that work. Item number 2B is consideration of Resolution 14-8-1982 is approval of amendment to the 2014 Lottis Park Engineering Contract. Earlier this evening in Personnel and Finance, this motion was approved. Jake?
Good evening. So we are knee-deep in our design and engineering plan for Lottis Park. And, a big portion of what the design and engineering was to prepare our recreational boating facility grant application by June 1st. Memorial Day weekend, I get a call that the boat landing at one side of Lottis was not able to move to get a boat out. It's almost be a little rock. Well, the whole 10-foot by 20-foot section of the concrete landing was turned up and flipped over on itself on the one part of the ramp. So it was basically inoperable. More going on underneath. The original plan for that launch was that we would leave it alone. It had been functioning just fine with the system since I've been here. And so we needed to make a decision in a hurry that we would want to include improvements to the boat landing and the ramp access in our recreational boat facility grant. So this required extra engineering and would require extra construction services as the project goes along. So we thought it would be wise if we're spending this much money improving both parts of the parking lot, that we should make sure that the actual process of getting your boat in the water is solid as well. And so part of that extension of the fee is for the design and the permitting process and then the construction observation. And then the other part of the amendment or the addition to the contract is the architectural landscape plan for the different bioswale retention zones that were required as part of the permitting process for the DNR. So those were things that were outside of the original scope of the contract that would now be added into it.
Questions? Pat?
If I may, Jake, is there any urgency in regards to the engineer of approving this process?
I think it would be nice.
To suspend the rules to take the site.
Second.
Yep.
Motion to suspend the rules, take this item out of order for discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor of suspend the rules, take the item out of order, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is there a motion for approval?
Move approval.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and second. Further discussion? Seeing none, would the clerk please call the roll?
Alder O'Connor.
Aye.
Alder Holmquist.
Aye.
Alder Thomas. Alder Bussey.
Aye.
Alder Wood.
Aye.
Alder Spade.
Aye.
Matter of fact, just
Yep.
would note that I believe the city administrator and the park and rec director are headed to Hayward tomorrow for a meeting on Wednesday on the grant, so. To
I don't know why
defend.
you guys asked them to meet with you.
Yeah.
Grants and then golf course.
Last time I was in Sheboygan, the last time I went, which was a nice one-day drive.
Okay.
That was fun.
Thank you, Jay. Thank you. All right, moving on. Is there any miscellaneous business anyone would like to bring forward this evening? Seeing reports from committees. I would like to make an introduction. The young man in the back, could you come to the podium, please? Some of you may not have been introduced to our new media coordinator, Mr. Will Nimmel. Would you please tell us everything about your life?
Yes, although we don't have enough recording time, I'm back there. So yes, I've been in Madison for the majority of my life, actually all my life when I was at. Been in the media field for the last 15 years, both in television, radio, and corporate media. So I've run the gamut of different mediums, I guess.
Well, we want to officially welcome you. Hearing nothing but great things about you, and he's learning the process. He's only been here 2 weeks, and he's got his hand out for buying equipment, so.
I know how it works.
He's learning well. So welcome, Will, and thanks.
Thank you.
Good luck. You have some amazing projects. Just as a quick sidebar on that, the radio station is really, Alder O'Connor heads that committee, and she has a group of local citizens, superstars, truly award-winning engineers designing this radio station.
Thanks to me.
The tower will be on our hose drying tower. And we'll hear next week what the tab may be coming in for the equipment side of that. And then I think immediately followed by the formation of a volunteer programming committee. So all of you, your dulcimer tones of your voice you want to hear, we'll be looking for programming, and it's essential that we have programming and serve the local community. And it's just going unbelievably well. We could not afford to pay for the talent that we have consulting for it. So it's really exciting. Anyone else, Jake? Eric? Jake? No, you can't borrow my musty pole for the
staff members. Ryan Quammen has got his aquatic facility operator license last year, kind of cross-training him into some park maintenance related activities, and he's just done an awesome job for us this summer. Had a couple of our fecal contamination periods in the pool. It's when he's been here on night duty, and it's worked exactly how I hoped, where instead of myself driving in to take care of it, we have someone on duty here that can respond to an incident. Ryan's been with us for about 4 or 5 years now, and just on the weekends that he's on duty, if I need something, if we have an issue with a shelter rental, he's more than willing to help out, and just wanted to highlight him as doing an excellent job for us this year.
Cool. Your wife appreciates him too, then.
Yes,
So-
absolutely.
All right.
And Thursday night is our national night out with the police and fire department at Winnebago Park. We hope that we can see you there from 6 to 8 p.m. We'll have tours of police vehicles. We're hoping to have MedFlight come in. Some of Dane County's emergency tactical vehicles will be here. Get to meet the police K-9. We have several sponsors. We'll have games, and our food cart vendors will be on site. And at dusk, we will be showing the movie Sound of Music. So a great movie to watch with your family.
And you kind of glossed over, but I think it's not at Fireman as originally
Correct.
last year. It's at Winnequa.
It's at Winnequa, so it's a change of venue just down the south side.
Looking forward to it. And as you talked about swimming, the tip of the hat to the Monona Swim Club. It came in 5th, I think, in the All-City, and set the number of your predecessor, son, Mr. McDade, set several all-time records.
Ben McDade.
Yeah, Ben McDade. So the pool seems to raise good swimmers, so doing a good job. Thank you.
Thanks.
All right, Alder Holmquist?
I wanted to highlight there's a new senior breakfast program that kicked off actually last Friday, and the first, but the grand opening is this Friday, and we will
For
be in
about 2
attendance.
minutes. Yeah, right at the front end.
And so this is kind of the reason I want to bring it up is this is a change in how the county is looking at some of the senior breakfast programs. What's unique about this is it's my meal, my way. The intention is to partner with some businesses in the community rather than having the senior breakfast always held within a senior center or a senior facility. So it is partnered with Cranberry Creek, and it's from 8:30 to 10:30 in the morning. Seniors 60 and over can choose between 2 options and pay by donation. There's no reservation.
Great. Alder Thomas?
No report.
Alder Bussey?
Facilities committee meets next Wednesday, 5:30. We're going to be reviewing Lots Park first. 35%.
35. Great. Alder O'Connor?
No report.
Alder Stone?
No report?
Alder Wood?
Just would report on the library renovation project. It's going well, although it is 1 to 2 weeks behind schedule due to some delays in material deliveries.
Completion was what?
Around, should be around Labor Day.
Oh, so it's close.
Yeah. I think they're going to be laying tile and then doing the stairs after that.
Great. City clerk?
Next week, Tuesday, there's an election. The partisan primary, there's quite a few things on the ballot. I urge you to come out and vote.
And the important part being partisan, you can only vote one party line,
Yes.
correct? You cannot do any cross-party voting in this.
That's
Or your
true.
ballot will be rejected.
Yes, it will.
Administrator Marsh?
Just a few things. One is as was noted earlier, the radio committee, the engineering committee will meet next Wednesday, 6 p.m. to finalize some of the details on cost estimates and location of the tower and the radio station. And then I'd like to thank everybody who participated from the community, our vendors, alders, residents, in the Mulligans for Monona last Monday. Great turnout, about 100 for golf and 100 plus, and another 10 or so for dinner.
Alder Thomas?
Just curious, can you give us a report on what's up with the Greek place?
Administrator Marsh? Would you care to?
The Greek.
The Greek restaurant that was written up by the health inspector?
I must have missed that. I have no
You were
idea.
golfing at the golf course.
I'll look into it.
We do not, we retain the services of the Dane County Health Department for inspection, so albeit it was approved by the city to become a restaurant, we do not we do not check it out. So once checked out, it appears to fail pretty miserably, and I don't know. Yep.
Wasn't it, we approved it for carryout, and then it was being operated as a restaurant, and they weren't set up to.
I think the owner may be just a bit naive about process and legalities. So I don't know the exact status of it right now, but Dane County was to shut it down initially. Anything else?
No.
Well, I've got huge news, I hope, unless you're gonna ruin the news. Mr. Stefani shared with you, but by far and away, the number one question I get every day is, when is Dean Avenue being repaired? And as of today, but then there was supposed to be another meeting, so do you know anything?
That's, what you know is true.
All right, the week of August 18th, so 2 weeks. Knocking on wood and wood and wood that they should commence construction of that. So I apologize, I mean, it was kind of to schedule. They have until October to complete it, some contract, and we've been putting as much pressure as we possibly can on the vendors, so. That's all Alder O'Connor.
Do you know how long it'll take?
About 2 miles. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Actually, that Dean Avenue will just take just over a week.
Okay.
Yeah, there will be other additional, the parking lot for the fire department.
Yeah, parking lot, a portion of Mangrove Lane, and then, Parkway on Rose Lawn,
Yeah.
and, there's one more that I'm missing.
Moigara?
Orgera, yep, that's correct.
And we're patching all the areas where it's gravel now, like bridge. We had water pipe breaks, and there's a major, Dan knows it, because all the homeowners reminds him frequently.
Yeah, we do all of our patching projects at one time, that way the crews just brought in for a few days of work, and they do that all at once.
When are they gonna be done with
November, they haven't told. As the last I heard, it was right on process. I know that's very disruptive, but I think they're gonna start paving this week on
They
the
were
west side.
paving today and working on the meter.
Yeah, so now they'll move over to the other end.
They were, I did see them out there actually working last night on a Sunday, about 6 o'clock, so.
You love them on Sundays on that one?
We gave them an extension through the end of the year for Saturday and Sunday, not to start before 7 or end after 7.
Good. All right, if there's nothing else, there were no committee assignments this week, so I would entertain a motion for adjournment. What? Jones report. I asked. Oh, that's a separate line. Okay, encore performance.
You thought you were gonna get out?
I know, I was like, oh, yes.
I thought maybe Mayor Wood would call on you. Earlier this evening, she once again.
Oh.
Joe.
So
3
bad.
times.
So,
Joe?
yes.
I'm sorry.
Just didn't want to see a special meeting.
Sure, it'll be special.
Yeah.
Don't mess this up while she's involved in payroll checks.
There it is.
There they are.
There we go. Okay, awesome. This is my first thought of PowerPoint, so I'm kind of gonna see very quick. Okay, I think I understand what to do. Hi, I'm Cindy Torres Joanne Andrews. Good evening. Well, I don't have any, slides depicting, fancy schmancy project to show you. Voter machines aren't that exciting, but I thought I'd share what goes on in the clerk's office, and I promise to keep my report under 2 hours. Every day I reconcile and prepare deposit of the day's utility payments and cash receipts, and that's what you see, the money, from all the departments and residents. Takes 15 minutes to an hour, depending on how large the deposit is and how well it adds up. There's a document or receipt that goes with each payment, and it describes the reason for the payment, and it's approved by somebody, to be deposited where it is. And these are batched together for each daily deposit. So I love working with money. All right. I don't do ambulance billing anymore, but I do have a drawer full of collections that State Collections Service is working on for us. They're slowly being whittled down as payments are received or as they time out. I also deposit any payments received and mail copies and paperwork to EMS medical billing almost weekly. So I still have my hands in the ambulance billing, but not as much as I did.
And why do you say that's being whittled down?
As they're being paid in full, if they're making payments, they'll be closed out, or they time out. There's a time limit to how long you can have a collection. I believe it's 6 years. So if they time out, then that drawer is down further and further. So eventually it will be empty, as EMS medical billing will be doing some collections for us, and also state collection. They send them to state collections. I don't need to hold the files anymore. So it's kind of out of that loop. When Aline sorts the mail, she gives me the bills, which this is a very exciting picture, which I gave to the department heads, and some of which I code. The department heads code the bills and give them to me by Wednesday so I can enter the invoices due and pay the bills. This requires frequent contact with department heads and for coding clarification, and also with vendors. I get copies of their statements, and I review them to see what we haven't paid and make sure that we have all the invoices that we have outstanding. I hold the receipts for department heads for their visa bills or until an anticipated invoice is received. As with cash receipts, every check paid out has paperwork with it describing the purchase and who authorized it. And if you, especially on finance and personnel, if you ever have a question about what we've been paying or why we paid it or what it is, I have a very small amount of space to do a description on a check. We are able to tell what things are based on the general ledger code. But if you really want to know, these files have everything. They are alphabetized by vendor, and we can look anything up for you. If you have any questions, you certainly are, welcome. Come and see it. There's a miscellaneous file for people we don't use all the time, but most of them have their own file.
No, when that's full, that's all Parks and Rec, so
Yeah. Every year this is offloaded into Mark's office, so we actually have 2 years worth of accounts payable available for review all the time. Everything else is in the vault for 7 years.
Have we ever considered the scanning as invoices come through and just being totally electronic?
At this point, the auditors prefer that we have a paper trail. We talked about this with Mark. Once in a while we do bring this up. He does make some like payroll payments as wire transfers, but they do appreciate a paper trail to be able to follow. It is also helpful for me personally, to have those invoices. I'd still have a file because the invoice would need to come probably and be printed out. There's a lot more detail on the actual invoice than you can get from what I can enter into the accounts received from the payroll system. So, but it is something, to think about, but at this point, that's what I've heard. Okay. 43 businesses were licensed, 35 for alcohol. There are over 200 licensed operators, those are bartenders, in Monona, and most for 1 year, with a few for 2 years. There are licenses and permits issued for temporary beer and wine events, transient merchants, more of these because we have the food carts now, we've got a lot more this year. Amplified devices, street use for block parties, and other types of applications. Each of these entails a police background check, as well as contact from me to make sure everything is ordered. is in order. Some applications require other department head approval, so I wrote them around. Like a street use permit usually gets fire department approval. There's a lot of different kinds of permits that are issued, and everybody gets a police background check for that type of the word I want, privilege. The License Review Committee has had an exciting year with 2 new ordinances so far for outdoor alcohol consumption and commercial quadricycles. Only 5 operators have been reviewed so far this year, and that's very small. We usually have 25 this year. So we usually talk about a lot more about that.
Mm-hmm.
And if you recall, a revocation hearing was held as well as a thorough review of a local business, which fortunately did not end in revocation, so we're happy about that. These are the license files, just so you know, we have a file for every license, and then of course the operators are just alphabetized, but there's a file for every business license, and they're kept for 7 years. So I have 7 years worth of their applications on file. This year's board of review, derived property assessment objections, some that had multiple complaints. Training of at least 1 voting member is required every 2 years. And I attend that training along with 2 members to make sure we're covered in case of absence or excused. You know, people can be excused from the board. We want to be as up to date as we can with the latest information. This year there was a new law enacted that's effective January 1st. That allows the board to refer a case directly to the circuit court, without hearing the case. I'm not sure how that's really going to affect us, but it sounds like it would help us with some maybe frequent complaints with the same issues. But I'm not sure, and I'll be looking into that with our city attorney. A happier endeavor is the Distinguished Service Award Committee, which continues its once-a-year tradition to meet and nominate recipients and make suggestions to the mayor for his award. The committee's work culminates in the annual appreciation reception that's ably organized by Leah. This is not an optical illusion. I really am that small. I think continuing education is very important. I was grateful and excited to attend a unique training opportunity, the first UW Servant Leadership Certificate Program. I felt and had agreed that this was right up my alley and addressed the type of leadership we as public servants provide. The 5-session course culminated in gaining even further insight from Police Officer Ryan Holtz, who holds a master's degree in servant leadership and was gracious enough to allow me to interview him for my final project. I now hold a certificate in servant leadership. I also attended CivMix, new supervisor orientation, and will look into continuing that free training series. Wisconsin Municipal Clerks Association provides valuable information at its district meetings, a couple of which Monona has hosted, and email clerk list, and I will be attending the annual conference held in Rothschild this year. This is a great educational and networking opportunity as well as fun. And clerks are known for being fun, and I like to do my part. So, and now on to those ubiquitous elections I hear go on and on about. You may have already seen the new DS200 digital voting machine if you voted in April. I also took the opportunity to purchase new, more stable voter booths. And you know, elections are just complicated. They really are. They take a month to set up and a month to finalize. Each election I record, assemble, and mail out close to 200 or more absentee ballots, with a huge spike occurring for presidential and gubernatorial elections. Alita and Michelle handle most of the walk-ins, and I really appreciate their help with that. My husband compares me to a rock band promoter. I secure the venue, advertise the event with public notices, prepare required documentation in the form of postings and materials, hire the staff, provide the food, act as roadie with Bob Johnson, stand back and let the stars, the election officials, put on the big show, pay everyone, report the results, and tear it all down for the next one. My dream in life is to one day have a city facility large enough with enough parking and storage, have one polling place. Elections are very exciting, and they seemingly never change. and I remind election workers we're making history. I love the election workers in Monona. We've got a great group of people that do their absolute best to do a great job. We're lucky. This year it was time to provide 3 hours of election inspector training that is required every 2 years, with 6 hours required for the 8 chief inspectors. I'm required to accumulate 6 hours annually, which I do through GAB webinars, a lot of them government accountability free webinars, or trainings or presentations that are given at district meetings count for that. So I usually end up with about 28 to 35 hours of training every year for elections. Eric Redding's staff made a videotape of the live training session that I gave with 42 attendees. The remainder of the 64 workers checked out the DVD and materials to make sure they were ready before they worked at the polls. Chief inspectors attended meetings with me as well as training on the new vote tabulators, and I make sure we're all up to speed on procedures and any of the frequent law changes that affect our work. Speaking of new laws, there were 18 enacted in April, and some directly affect us, like every new registration has to provide proof of residence, which usually entails contact from me, and the documents have to be archived for 90 days or 22 months, depending on the type of election it is, federal versus non-federal. So it's really, it's fun. And just so you know how complicated election law can be, the last 4 digits of the proof of resident number has to be recorded if there are more than 6 digits, and the last 2 digits have to be recorded if there are 6 or less numbers. I came up with a slogan that helps the workers remember. 7 or more, write down 4. 6 of you, write down 2. I mean, what else can you do? I mean, we do our best. Okay. Last year, I was finally able to get all of the 6,000 voter registration forms into 3 ring binders because the form kept changing. We said drawers, they were little forms and they felt they fit in drawers. And now they went to full page, so it was a whole mess. And so it was quite the job. And I got it done last year before I went out on leave. And it makes finding them and filing them a lot easier. And there are so many changes. People move in, people pass away. We need to pull those forms out. They're saved for 4 years. Dan Edgington from Public Works made me this great turntable. I have a counter space in my office that can't be moved. So I have this giant turntable that holds a lot of election materials, which is awesome. One of my personal goals is to get council minutes on the website within 48 hours of the meeting. So if you see something that should be corrected, please contact me, and I can fix it before the meeting packet is distributed. You know, there's times they have typos, or whatever else you think needs correction. I can certainly do it before it is distributed, so don't hesitate to call me. I always look for ways to streamline the process, and I'm happy to report a 5-hour meeting doesn't take me 5 hours to record anymore. I also do the much shorter Finance and Personnel Committee minutes, as well as the License Review, Board Review, and Distinguished Service Award. Finally, almost finally, the clerk's office swears in staff and officials, records oaths of office, publishes ordinance which makes them effective, and attests the mayor's signature on contracts and legislation. Open records request and records retention are among the clerk's statutory duties. I also provide notary public services to staff and residents, and frequently answer the telephone and try to help residents when needed. And of course, the ever popular other duties as assigned applies as well. Currently, I'm working on a fee schedule ordinance and have plans to work on other ordinances and applications as well. I want to bring everything up to date. So you can tell the clerk's office is very busy, but I love being busy. I love the variety. I love most of the time working with people, and I love working with all of you. Thank you.
Hey, where was that? I mean, that's a Photoshop thing, right?
This was in Iowa, and I don't know how to stop this.
Well,
it would never make it to our plan commission.
Wow.
It was, Monona, Iowa, and then I, like I said, never done a PowerPoint. I was like, I think I can mess with it, so I put the logo on.
That was awesome.
They advertise you can get gas.
Thank you, Joe. You do an excellent job. Don't keep us sleepless because you know everything's in the right spot. So thank you very much. I would entertain a motion for adjournment to silent session.
So moved.
Second?
Motion and second to adjourn. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
How long was it?
Yes.
Awesome.
Well, thank you
I learned stuff.
Yeah. Well, you know, it's funny, I was sitting here, I was thinking, how...
And then brought it up at a meeting.
Right, right. Well, I
Well, he's missed several lately, so otherwise
Right.
I'm sure he would have, but it's kind of the perfect compromise.
right. Well, and I feel...